Hello, you, and welcome here at eSpace, here during the Global Entrepreneurship Week here at the University of Geneva. In a few seconds, we will go and start a masterclass on the topic of factors of disruption, a masterclass given by our esteemed Paul Wang, which is a member of the board, the managing board of ICON, the NGO that will be co-hosting this session tonight with us. So now moving to the core of our session, Paul Wang, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, man. So first, thank you very much for this opportunity today, given to me concerning the factors of disruption. When I first heard about factors of disruption, I thought about myself going backwards to the ancestors' time. And obviously, we've all been living in a changing world, like our fathers, our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers. As you know, I mean, in their times, factors of disruption already existed. They were not living, I would say, peacefully. They were not living into standards. They were not living into norms. They had massive factors of disruption. So when you mention about disruption, I thought to myself, okay, what is actually disruption? How can we actually define disruption? Why are we living in disruption? It will be too easy to say that a lot of people live in peace. A lot of people live in their routine world. It will be quite nice. However, due to changes, due to continuous changes into our environment and our changing world, we are always facing crisis. We are facing pandemic. We are facing actually changes of technology, and people need to adapt into this kind of new mood into the disruption world. So in order to probably go through some of the subject I would like to go through, there are three different themes. First is technology. Second is also related to technology, but more on a social governance and also helping the community. And the third topic will be on a personal, individual perspective. What I'll try to do is probably inspire a lot of people, especially during this week, the Semaine de l'Entrepreneuriat, to inspire people, inspire the youngsters, the young generation, your generation, the generations to come, to adopt the disruption factors. I think it's very important to think about what do we define as a disruption. So first, I'll probably skip the part related to ICON, as you already pointed out, the activities of ICON, and so the ICON is co-hosting this evening's session. But within our NGO community, we're trying to thrive people, to attract people, to get people to know the activities related to how to promote education, how to promote safety into the cyberspace. And we're giving quite a number of educative classes, like master classes, to public sector, to private sector as well, and to really educate those people how to behave on the cyberspace. Let me go through the disruption, some of the keywords. I highlighted here a number of keywords around disruption. As you can see, one is innovation. What leads disruption is probably innovation, or what leads innovation is probably to attack or to take advantage of a disruptive event, and there comes innovation. Inspiration, I'm trying to inspire young people. How? By probably sending disrupted messages or disturbing messages. Some people try to combine disruption and also disappointment, disruption, and probably degradation, or anything related to a change. A change can be positive, but a change can also be negative. One of the very important keywords I highlighted here is youth. You are younger than I am. You are smarter than I am, probably because due to education, because now you have the facility of having everything which is connected. Technology is disruptive. If you think about your ancestors back maybe 100 years ago, did they have technology? They probably have their other sense of technology. They were using different technology, which was not called technology, but it was called maybe how to make their life easier, how to make their life more peaceful, how to start a new business, how to be entrepreneur, not to use technology, but to use their mindset. Because disruption is not only about technology, but disruption is about how to change the mindset, how to define new strategy, how the younger generation, like you are, and like all the different people who are currently attending the this masterclass, are probably thinking, okay, how do we, new generation, face the world in a changing world? Because, as I mentioned, we're facing crisis. We want to increase the efficiency. There's a change of paradigm. There's a lot of motivation, and how to motivate the young generation to get out of their comfort zone. It will be too easy to say, okay, we're living in a peaceful world. Everything is pink. Everything is nice. Everything is great. And there's nothing that is negative. However, the real world, back in the past of our ancient generation, humanity has always lived in a changing world, in a continuous changing world. 100 years ago, there was war. So our ancestors faced a war, faced actually migration, faced poverty. Are we facing poverty right now? We are still facing poverty. There's still quite an unbalance between generation and unbalance between different countries. And what I'm trying to do is probably inspire people to do good for the community, for themselves, and obviously for the future generations to come. And the kids of our kids will be the future, and how to preserve humanity in this disruptive world. I'd like to probably mention a few historical things related to factors of disruption. First, the sustaining innovation that managed to sustain for a certain period of time, like camera, digital camera. Or if you go back maybe in the 60s or 70s, Kodak. Kodak was the perfect example of how disruption came into the photography world, and how Kodak did not manage to adopt the digital media because they were surpassed by a number of different actors. The GPS, still people using GPS. GPS is still considered to be disruptive, innovative during that time. But now, more and more people are just using Google Maps or other types of highly technological devices, no longer, still called GPS, but now no longer the devices. So a lot of those technology needs to be adapted. Dictionary, encyclopedia, I still remember back in my youth time, when I was your age, going to library and reading through encyclopedia and reading through tons and tons of like books, heavy books. And those books were part of like disruption because it was a dictionary of the dictionary that people, like young people in my generation, were using in order to educate themselves, in order to learn new things, learn new topics about mythology, or maybe making other conferences. And nowadays it's being replaced by what? By Wikipedia. A lot of people are using Wikipedia. It has been disruptive. Now the fact about using disruptive technology like Wikipedia, can you trust? So trust is a different sector about how trust is being managed in the disruptive world, because everything which is connected, it can be changed, it can be hacked. But this is not the subject of our masterclass today. Third one, blockbusters. Whenever you are going to cinemas, whenever you are watching blockbusters, you go to the movies. People still like to go to movies. However, now, sitting at your home, just comfortable, with a massive screen, you can watch online videos. You can watch Netflix on-demand videos, which has caused such a massive disruption within the movie businesses. This has been disruptive. So companies need to adapt, and the future generation probably need to adapt to other types of technology or other types of changes. And the last one, which has been totally disruptive, is actually taxi cabs, transportation. It has been replaced by Uber, Lyft, all kinds of transportation devices or transportation means. when you think about Uber, Uber started with the Uber Eats delivery. It has changed. It has changed the way that people needs to order, and the entire ecosystem, and that's how we call the ecosystem, is built around servicing people, servicing humanity, because humans always wanted to make life easier, simpler, cheaper, with disruption around, but still making things that they have everything by the click of a button. And those are the disruptive innovation. What is the future into disruptive innovation? We don't know yet, but we're always trying to anticipate. I'd like probably to point out one of the diagram about the factors of disruption that has been edited by Accenture. Those are the 4 different keywords: variability, volatility, durability, and vulnerability. Those usually are the different themes that whenever you think about disruption, you need to convey to which theme the disruptive innovation can fall into. One theme can fall into different types of category, but whenever you are able to find an innovation, whether it's technology or non-technology innovation, you always have to think about those different themes. So as I mentioned, one of the 3 different aspects I'd like to go through about factors of disruption are how are we, a big community, trying to help disrupt disruption, because disruption, as I mentioned, can be negative or can be positive. How can we actually face it? How can we help disrupt disruption to make it positive? Double negation means positive. One of the activity that I did participate over the last few years already, and especially this year, are hackathons. Hackathons, in the old way of defining hackathons, were usually for geeks. Whenever you need to hack a computer system, you participate to hackathons. But now the word hackathon is being broadly used by a lot of people in order to do something in a community in order to solve an issue. It's no longer, well, it's still for geeks to hack a system doing hackathon, but nowadays is to strive and to get a lot of people in different types of skill set, with a different type of skill set, in order to solve an issue. One of the major issue today, obviously we all are living, and that's the reason why today we're here without any audience physically, but virtually, thanks to the audience who are participating online. We are facing the COVID-19 disruptive event. I will call it that way. We are facing a crisis. So how do people anticipate crisis? How can they manage crisis? And a lot of people are still lost with different norms, different procedures, different standards, different restriction. And there's a little community that started already probably in March, just before things were getting bad, actually, in the Occidental world. And I was part of this community, as well as Lenny, in order to try to find out how can we not save the world, but how can we make people behave better, making them aware of the risks factor, anticipate. How do we manage the crisis? We, as a single individual person, we are not able to manage the crisis as an individual person. However, if we combine the different community with different skill sets, then we'll be able, in such a way, to manage or to limit the consequences related to the disruptive events such as the COVID-19. And I still remember having discussed with a lot of different people about how serious this COVID-19 will be, how serious it will affect us as human beings, but also the global world. And we're still not finding the solution. We're still but we're still working towards to find a good solution. Whether the solution as one solution or many solutions will come immediately after winter is over, with vaccines, with other things. We are all living on the same boat. We need to find a good dock to be able to land correctly in an ideal world. And so to manage the crisis, this is currently the main 2020 disruptive event. That's the reason why hackathons, and I take various example, Code versus COVID-19. That was quite a global initiated from around Europe and also Switzerland, but still a global project in order to attract a lot of people, different skill sets, from the humanitarian, from the supply chain, to the pharma one, to the doctors one, in order to try to solve the situation, in order to make the situation better. Did we achieve it? I think what was very interesting into this this hackathon, that was the first one that I did participate earlier this year, was to be able to discuss with a lot of different people, different worlds. And thanks to technology, because everyone was connected into this world, there's always the last mile. The non-connected people were giving information, insight, or exposing their problems. And we as a connected world, into the connected world, we were trying to solve their issues into, say, making their life easier. One is probably the traceability that people have been talking about, the contact tracing, methodology, technology, processes, privacy, protection of privacy. I mean, this has been quite disruptive, I would say. But within the hackathon, you are discussing with a lot of people from various sectors, and students are talking as well. And students, with their youth mindset, they're not afraid. They are speaking loudly. They make mistakes. They may make mistakes, but at least they are suggesting. They are making their suggestions based on what they learned and what they learned back at school. And so they are able to propose new technology, new methodology, new mindset. And that's the reason why Hackathon is very successful. The other one was sponsored by the European community, was EU versus virus. And that is a big community that was actually even bigger. And the fact that it was bigger, it attracted a lot of different people from the east side of the U.S. to the far east, from the west side of the U.S. to the far east, China, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea as well. The closer to us, collaboration and co-creation from Impact Hub with Basel. And that's a topic which has not been technology oriented, but related to ethical, because it's not about just technology. Technology can be disruptive, but technology can also harm privacy, can harm ethics. And that's the reason why ethics is very important. And in the new generation of people, in the young generation, they are often thinking about ethics and how to promote ethical rights, how to make sure technology will not bypass privacy, will not be negative in such a way that we still have our freedom of liberty and that the ethical rights are being applied. In addition to entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship, which is the topic of this week, is also something which is very important for the young generation because they are the ones who are going to build new startups, they are the ones who are going to create new innovative solutions in order to solve an issue. Versus Virus, which was sponsored in Switzerland by the Swiss Confederation, was also another hackathon that I participated in. You assemble different topics that are being raised by the Swiss Confederation, and then I was asked to actually mentor a number of projects, and mentoring about supply chain, mentoring about social media, mentoring about fake news, mentoring about governance, blockchain, so everything from technology to non-technology. And whenever you are discussing with, I would say, my generation, older people, in order to understand maybe the experience, understand what they are confronted with, and discussing the issues in order to brainstorm, in order to mentor the young generation, say, okay, those are the things that you'll be doing for good. Those are the disruption issues that you're trying to solve, how to make a solution being a global one and how to address it. And when mentoring projects from Far East to the total west of the US, you are embracing different cultures. I was discussing with a team in Taiwan, different mindset from the Western, obviously, which is disrupting as well, because you don't talk the same way to Far Eastern people compared to Occidental people. And then you need to accommodate, you need to convey the same message. Everyone is striving to face the crisis, but with different means, different manners, and different ways of, different culture ways. Another hackathon related to blockchain, which was meant to disrupt two issues. Hack for Good. Stellar, which is Stellar Foundation, which is creating an equitable access to the global finances system, organized a hackathon related to solving issues for child, making sure child are no longer being left aside, are no longer being considered as poverty, but to make sure that the future generation of the kids or the current generation of kids who are living in the developing countries are being supplied with goods, with not necessarily with money, but with goods, with pharmacy, with education, and with a better way of living. And 2 years ago, there was a blockchain challenge at the Fusion. And the objective was to solve different solutions. So one of the project was related to gold traceability, and the other one was the diminution of child labor, because in artisanal gold mining, there's still a lot of children that are working there with no health, with no money, and with little money. And Terre des Hommes, which is an association that was proposing these two subjects, were trying to find out where the blockchain could help. So we were a vast community of developers, thinkers, manufacturers in the luxury world as well, in order to find out whether we can assemble those skill sets. And what was very interesting about this blockchain challenge was we were trying to find a value proposition with technology, but also with making those countries who are disrupted by poverty, making sure that they can adopt the solution. Because it's true that if you come up with new technology in a non-technological world, that is very difficult to make them adopt, because there's no power line, there's no technology, and how can you use blockchain in a developing country? So what we were trying to find out is about value proposition is how we can accommodate technology into those countries and making sure the children are being traced, I'll say tracked, but are still being supplied with education. So changing the paradigm from the children working in a gold mine by sending them into studying into school. In those kind of countries, there's still a lot of corruption. So you need to convince the government that this solution, they can still benefit from it. So giving incentive both to children's parents, not sending their children into gold mines to work, but sending them to school. So you give incentive to the government. So then it's becoming a win-win-win situation from the government, from the children, and from the parents. If they receive education, they will be rewarded in such a way. So it is combining technology, but also very simplistic word terminology for children, for parents, and for government, saying those kind of solution can provide a value proposition. It was difficult, but it was very interesting as a challenge. The mission was really to reduce child exploitation in mining and to support SDG, social developing goals. We created different models in order to find out what do we need, what are the different key partners, what are the key activities, what is the value proposition, how can we attain it, what are the different challenges, what are the risks, and what do we need, what are the channels of distribution. And with this kind of concept, you're thinking how we can partner between the public and the private sectors. One thing that attracts the government at the end of the day is money. For them, new technology may be disruptive, but at the end of the day, they still want money that comes into their pockets. And in order to provide them incentives, say you'll have probably cleaner money, you'll still have your part of the shares, you'll still have the money. However, by using this disruptive technology to make the life of the children better and healthier, as a government, you'll still be in a win situation. At the same time, the children will be in a win situation, and at the same time, the health of the children will be better. The challenge, obviously, is to convince those governments. But we as a community can then work towards this manner of convincing the government by giving them incentive. And that's one of the reasons why blockchain is disruptive, but it can help. Now coming to the second aspect of my session is related to industry innovation and disruption. We started with the first industry version 1.0, the age of steam and industrial power. At that time, our ancestors were living in a more manual world and using, at that time they call it technology, but using the power of steam, they managed to make machinery better and to start with the industries. And then it was becoming better. Then the second generation was electricity. With the assembly line and mass production, then you started to make more machines into the same machine line to make it faster, more efficient. Mass production, making it sure that you are parallelizing your task. If you think about the Charlie Chaplin movie, that was actually the best example of the industry version 2.0. Then the third generation was automation, probably in the 60s, 70s, or maybe a little bit earlier, the robotics, automation. That was the age of the automation. Computers started, and computers started to help. A lot of people were fascinated, and some other people were afraid of computers. They were thinking, oh, computers is going to replace humans. Computers are disrupting our world. Well, the purpose of getting computers working was making sure that humans can be innovative but still manage the computers. That was actually the goal, why computers automation started, because all the different routine work, the boring work can be replaced by computers. After that, 4.0, the machinery started to be more smarter, using cyber technology, using smart devices, the digital world, the digital age. We're currently still living into that age. That helped us. That replaced a lot of task force, for sure. But the fact of creating this age, the intention was to facilitate our work and our life and make our life easier and comfortable. There are, for sure, different negative aspects related to whether everyone will still be able to work. Everyone will still have to have a satisfaction work, or by replacing our work by robots, how will it change and how do we address the issues for the next generation? And then Industry 5.0, that's the other aspect, the augmented reality, which is making sure that the human and machine are creating some kind of symbiosis. And having this symbiosis will have a collaborative manufacturing. So the machine will collaborate with humans. Humans will collaborate with machines. We'll be able to still to govern. Obviously, humans still want to be in control. I mean, that's the reason why humans are there. But we need to be able to work towards a maybe utopical, maybe too peaceful world with machines, but at least combining and bridging artificial intelligence with human devices. I'm not saying that everyone needs to implant probably a chip or device. However, this may be disruptive. This may bring facility. May bring more efficiency. However, it can be disruptive for the health, and we need to address those kind of issues. Another one related to industry, as the challenges that we are facing is, for example, ransomware as a service. Everyone is knowing what ransomware. We're confronted with ransomware, and ransomware has been disruptive in a lot of different industry. First industry that we know that ransomware had disrupted, supply chain, and also hospitals. Hospitals has been attacked by ransomware. How do we face this? People will still be using technology, not for good, but for the bad motivation. And how do we, or how do new generation need to find a way to confront to this kind of disruption in order to make use of technology in a better way? Acquisition of big data as well. We are using a lot of data. Everything is technology. Everything is data. Information is key. Information has a big value, and we are confronted with tons of emails. This is also changing our world. This is also disrupting us. We are connected to a lot of social media. We are watching news. We are watching feeds. We are watching Twitter. We're Instagram. Those are the big data, and those are the data that do we have to concentrate on those keywords? Do we have to analyze everything? We are being surrounded by data. Real-time analysis. With this amount of data, how do we analyze in real time? Can we analyze real time manually? Obviously, we need robot, we need automation, we need technology. And thanks to technology, we are able to analyze data in a real time basis. Integration of automated algorithm and tools as well. Those are the different challenges that currently we are facing for the Industry 5.0. Disruptive technology. When we talk about technology, we talk about the advantages of technology. Obviously, it has also downsides. I want to take probably two examples. One example is related to the arrest of a Chinese of a Chinese person who was actually a criminal, but a white-collar criminal. He was arrested in a stadium, not in a stadium, sorry, in a concert, by using technology, by using artificial intelligence and facial recognition cameras. Within 20 minutes, the cops were able to track him down and to find him in the public. There were about 80,000 people in the concert hall, and they were able because by the time he entered, they were able to track him down. It is similar to the movie Minority Report, probably, but at least this exists. Using facial recognition, it helps. It helps to make good, but it helps, it is disrupted, and people are still afraid of the new technology because facial recognition, how can you maintain privacy anymore? How can you be safe? Do we respect the ethical restriction? Do we respect the ethics and the privacy of the person? The second example is those connected devices, connected glasses, or in a few years ago, the Google glasses. Now connected augmented reality glasses do exist. They are being used by law enforcement people. They are used by investigators in order to recognize a person's face and immediately get the entire biography of the person or the CV of the person, or getting access to maybe his criminal records, his fines, and maybe to be able to arrest a person. This is helping law enforcement, but this is disrupting. People are scared. Obviously, people are scared for the good reason. But are we living into that world in order to adopt disruptive technology? How can we adopt disruptive technology in order to live a better world? Then the third chapter I would like to probably mention is, at the end of the day, we are living in a disrupted world, but we, meaning I as an individual. And because technology, because different paradigms, because of changes and crises, the work-life balance is still very important. We are faced with big data, we are faced with disruptive events like pandemic. However, we still need to have an inspiration for our life to make our life better. And that's the reason why work-life balance is very important. Like, probably to take a few examples that's concerned me, I adopted a new sport, which is called the acro yoga, about 2 years ago, just out of the blue. And some people were asking me why starting a new activity. Acro yoga was quite disruptive, was quite new, but one of the way of maintaining a work-life balance and to think off work, off devices, off technology, off the grid, let's say, and into this kind of like more spiritual way of thinking, spiritual life, was probably to get a balance. In acro yoga, that's a typical example of balance, because you need to work in pairs, work with other people in order to balance yourself. You need to be concentrated. You don't think about technology anymore. You don't think about innovation devices. You think about yourself. You need to concentrate yourself. You need to focus on your partner's move in order to feel it, in order to sense the entire environment around. If you're on this is the platform in Bain des Paquis, which is just above the water. It was still balanced. However, moving with the waves, you still need to focus on the surrounding environment, not using technology, but with the entire disruptive circumstances. So this is a typical example of a work-life balance, how in a disruptive world you can balance your mindset and feeling better as an individual, and working in partner with other partners. That is very important to think of yourself and of your partner that you're basing and that we call you're flying. Another one, which is also some kind of challenge to get out of this technology world. Last year, I went to Nepal to go to the Himalayas, and it was just out of the blue. And I still remember when my daughter learned about my project, she was saying, all of a sudden, it was decided very quickly and with little preparation, but somehow with some kind of thought, say, I want to take up a new challenge and to go to the Himalayas. So prepared in roughly like 2 weeks of time, maybe a little bit less, in order to find out where can I go as high as possible, but still within the boundaries of my physical condition. And I managed to climb to something like 3,500 meters to one of the peak within 3 days with a guide, obviously. And that was very important as a self-satisfaction. It was very disruptive because training is important, and to adopt a work-life balance, that was a more physical balance in order to find out whether you can achieve it. Once you achieve and go to the mountain and find the beauty of nature, you are looking at the highest peak of the world, like the Himalayas, the Mount Everest. You're looking at some of the highest peak in the world, and you're thinking, okay, you as an individual are very small. I as an individual are very small compared to the massive surrounding. This massive surroundings with the high peaks is also something disruptive, because the disruption of the mountain have always existed before my time, have always existed before the time of our ancestors. They existed for billions and billions of years. They were disruptive, and they created this magnificence. So the disruption is also about your well-being. And the last one I want to mention is using technology nowadays into making sure that you have a work-life balance. you, me, a lot of people are taking online classes, are taking sport online classes. And during one of the hackathon, what I managed to do in order to change the mindset, not always trying to solve an issue, not just to fight the COVID, was to start also another class, not a master class, but still giving a yoga class online with the community. And it was fun. It was kind of disruptive because it wasn't planned, it wasn't organized. It was just all of a sudden say, okay, are people willing to attend yoga class? Different time zone. In Taiwan, it was 1 a.m. in the morning. In Switzerland, it was 6 p.m. And in the US was 9 a.m. in the morning. So people manage using technology, using disruptive technology to attend it and having fun for maybe 45 minutes as a yoga class. So that's the reason why using technology, you can find a work-life balance as well. As a conclusion, what is the future of our ecosystem? My perception is we need to live in a cohesive living with factors of disruption. The world will always change. The world is living in a continuous evolution, and there will always be factors of disruption. How can we live in a cohesive world? There are different aspects. Are we living into human versus emergent technology, like robots, artificial intelligence? Or are we living human and emergent technologies? We need to work together. That's very important. We need to be inspired to face the future world. Public-private partnership, as I mentioned, during Hackathon, that's the best way to combine skill set from the private sector, from the public sector, to understand the challenges and to attract more people to adopt it. And my last words will be to the audience, live your dreams. Make sure that all your dreams come true with the factors of disruption. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul Wang, a lot for this wonderful masterclass. Almost disruptive to me at the moment. Just a quick question to begin now with the discussion. I think that you've been around this whole topic of disruption, and I would like to add a word, which is resilience, right?
Sure.
Resilience is that word, I believe, in some way that kind of opposes disruption. It's the way you can actually navigate this change. But in your opinion, as we see the current situation we are in now with COVID, which involves the public sector, which involves the private sector, but also involves the individual. We're now all living in different time zones, as you said, but all connecting via Zoom, etc. Right. We see that we have different entities, different levels, and that we may have also competing interests at this level. How do we navigate change, knowing that we might not have the same agenda?
I think thank you very much for this interesting question. Resilience, I will put resilience along with sustainability. Resilience and sustainability, they go along together. And the fact that different changes, different agenda, as you rightly pointed, different community has different agenda and different paces. We need to be cohesive, and that brings the factor of living in a cohesive world. We need to find a cohesion in order to address all those issues that may not be priority for a certain sector, but maybe for others, in such a way that bridging, not technology, but bridging the different agenda of the people in order to strive for the same goal, we need to find a top-level goal, not building from bottom to top, but still from top to bottom. What are we trying to solve? What are we trying to address? In this pandemic situation, people are trying to address health, public health. People are trying to address economy, for sure. Which is priority? Is the public health priority or the financial system, the financial economy? We cannot say public health should be more important than the economy, because without economy, there's no public health. Without public health, there's no economy. Different people have different agenda. Doctors have different agenda. Doctors want to save the world or save the humanity, save people, making sure that people are not sick and making sure the hospital are not being overwhelmed. So resilience, how to create resilience? I would say one of the easy way to create resilience will be to go backwards a little bit, to go back maybe 1, 2, 3 steps in order to say, why did we reach that point? In order to find out, say, if there were different factors, not disruption, but there were different factors that could have prevented us from reaching that point, how can I overcome this point and find other ways of making things better? So that's the reason why whenever you're managing a crisis, you need to think about resilience. Whenever you're managing a crisis, you need to think about your business continuity plan, your disaster recovery plan. You need to think ahead, like in chess. Whenever you play chess, you have robotics playing chess, and you need to think maybe 5, 10, 100 steps afterwards in order to be resilient, in order to be able to anticipate the enemy's move. Now, I mean, the enemy obviously is the COVID-19. How can we, let's say, in a year time, back to normality? How can we be resilient in such a way that the situation is bad right now? Let's make it as a maximum, and let's make sure that what comes afterwards will be better.
And so, hearing you, I also see the need also for collaboration, right? Because
Correct.
you see, let's do it. We. Have you seen from your personal experience also that there is really a communication between sectors, between groups of interest?
Now there is. In the past, I would say the public and private partnership has always been linked to his CSR, corporate social responsibility. Back probably 15, 20 years ago, it was called CSR. Now it's called public-private partnership. It's still being used. Whether the public and private partnership are really working hand in hand, there's always a slow motion and a fast motion due to the way those kind of entities are being built. However, the communication, we need to move from a simply communication theoretical plan or theoretical agenda into the do, the act and the do, the think, do, and act. And the act is really something that you need to plan ahead of time. If you want to make sure that you have a vaccine, if you want to make sure you have a solution in order to provide supply to the developing countries, you need to act in such a way that you design an agenda that is actually reachable, that is achievable, not into theory that maybe 6 months later you come back and say, okay, what did we reach? What did we reach? What's the point of no return? Are we able to solve the situation? Are we able to address the issue? And the communication is very important, but communicating in such a way that all the people understand the words that is being exchanged and work towards the same goal. And so because otherwise you would have different misunderstanding because different agenda of different communities.
And so the collaboration you're speaking of is also a collaboration that is in some ways ex ante to the issues themselves. So we need to create a culture of communication in some way so that we are more resilient in the future.
That's correct. And that's also the reason why Hackathon, you communicate, you collaborate, you are striving for the same goal. And people during the hackathons, I didn't know most of the people. I only knew a few people that were also part of those hackathons, but the rest of the people I just met like hundreds of different people asking questions, and then you work towards a collaborative way in order to, especially as a mentor, in order to satisfy their request and to provide some kind of thoughts, value proposition.
And for some, I mean, for such a culture of communication to exist, you need trust, right?
Correct.
You said it's not part of the masterclass, but I kind of see it coming in. In some way, in your opinion, is there this culture of trust, especially in hackathons, as you see this very small ecosystem? You might have an engineer with a designer. Do you see them really trusting each other? Because in some ways, they are pouring in their know-how, maybe some data, some key interests. Do you really see this trust building up?
Yes. The reason why trust has been, I'll say 99% into those hackathons is you are trying to solve a situation. Obviously, there's a lot of competition, but we're moving into a collaborative way of competing to get some kind of reward. But the fact that there is a trust of people by definition, because hackathon is usually for non-for-profit. At the end of the day, whenever a solution comes afterwards and is implemented, is in production, you get finances, you get venture capitalists that are financing maybe the solution. But there is always this trust. And the fact that trusting a new person in order to make sure that the person adopts your solution and bring his knowledge and provide some kind of incentive, let's say incentive by means of, I wouldn't call it by shares, but maybe by sharing. Mm-hmm. And all those hackathons I did participate to, you were putting ideas, you were putting codes, technology into GitHub. And GitHub is a platform to share. It's a trusted platform to share so that everyone is an open source platform so that everyone can put their skill set, their opinion about a new code, their changes, and everything has been documented. And the fact that it is actually open source allows everyone to share with a certain level of trust. I remember participating to some of the project, and some of the project asked me to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Whenever I was reviewing their white paper, mm-hmm. mentoring them, they made me sign their non-disclosure agreement so that it's not being used by others. And it's a matter of trust. I did sign it. They trusted me. I reviewed that document. They shared their technology. I reviewed that document in order to provide feedback. Mm-hmm. And trust, especially in an ecosystem which is totally connected, the factor of trust is something very important.
That is very important. And now, if we now take a bigger picture and bring also the civil society into it, now that we have also a rise in misinformation, isn't that also a factor of disruption in some way of this very specific notion of trust? Do the people trust the government that the vaccine they are promoting is really safe? And in some way, do you see this issue of misinformation being handled? And if not, do you see it as potentially harming the very resilience of our society?
Misinformation or fake news has always been, especially with the advent of technology, being totally misused, and people are losing confidence and are losing trust on any kind of information. They know that journalists, they know that government wants to communicate only things that they are probably able to communicate and to control, and not even. Some of the videos cannot be controlled, fake videos, using technology, even technology to detect whether those fake videos are actually fake. Some videos are so perfect that you are not able to detect it anymore. There are a lot of different communities around the world trying to work towards identifying fake news, identifying misinformation. During these hackathons as well, they were also one of the themes, one of the topics was related to fake news, and especially with Lenny, we were working on that session as well. Are we going to be resilient enough to prevent fake news? I don't think so. Humans have the positivity, and humans has also the negativity. And people who are animated with a harmful motivation, harming motivation, they will always be thinking ahead of the good guys in order to make sure that they can disrupt it for one reason or another. We should be able to anticipate as much as possible, not to be preventing fake news, but to be able to identify those misinformation and making sure the right message is being communicated. Unfortunately, nowadays, people are overwhelmed with big data. I was mentioning during my presentation, overwhelmed with big data. Some are fake, some are real. How do you distinguish fake from non-fake? Even myself, although I'm very cautious, I identify things that may be fake, but that it didn't trigger my attention. So we need to be resilient in such a way that if it's fake, then I have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D that it has been thought through before reading the information. And before reading the information, I always try to make sure that the information is authentic, it's true, it's been verified before publishing it. Because it will be too easy just to relay an information which is totally fake, which someone has not verified, and then a lot of people read it on social media and think it is true, and at the end of the day, it's not true.
And so we see, and especially with regard to that, that's basically in our society you have different entities. We have governments, companies, individuals, and everybody is entrusted in some way with the resilience of the whole body. For example, companies, let's say Twitter, for example. Well, they're a platform, and people publish on the platform, and some people might publish some data or some information that are false. Those very specific entities or individuals, maybe also in position of power. How do they navigate those situations where they do have maybe to take action to protect the resilience? You mentioned before this notion of ethics. Do you see it evolve also? You mentioned it's kind of evolving, but practically speaking, how do you see it really penetrating this bigger issue?
I think now with your generation, the young generation, today's young generation, they are more focused on ethics, and for good reason. And so those companies, like you mentioned, Twitter, are more cautious in order to make sure that the publications are correct, are right, are being correctly managed. You can't prevent risk zero. You can't make sure that you can't being like security 100%. But they are trying to make sure that their business is sustainable. They still trust into their corporation. They still trust into the way they manage information. So they are working towards managing true and trustful messages that are being published only. So everything which is being fake or misinformation or responding to some keywords, there are machines, artificial intelligence machines, in addition to humans that are working 24/7 in order to detect it, because it will be too difficult if it's only a human behind the desk and monitoring all the different messages. And there are lots of like different keywords, but there are keywords, similarity, close to that keywords in order to determine them and to flag them. Whenever they reach those systems, whenever they reach, let's say a 99% of identification that this is a fake and that needs a human to click, it's a fake and being erased, you can't have one person behind all the different messages and clicking. So there are systems in place that are addressing those issues in order to make sure the fake information or the misinformation or the damaging information are not being published and are being erased before being published. And thanks to technology nowadays, because those disruptive technology can address. At the end of the day, the disruptive technology has been programmed by humans for sure. So humans will program them, but the machine learning or artificial intelligence will have a learning curve in order to be beyond what humans can decide.
So I see an interesting way to actually use technology so as to maybe also reinforce the resilience of the whole body. Now maybe one last question, because the time is also is almost done. So we're here in an university building. I'm a student myself. There are many students involved in this project. What will be the message you would like to send to those students, and also maybe to your younger self a few years ago, to help them maybe also navigate the change that is coming ahead of them?
I think, as I mentioned during my last slide, living your dreams. So whenever someone has a dream of doing or achieving a goal in the future, he or she needs to say, what are my dreams? Are those dreams achievable? How are they achievable? I usually think of two ways. One way is, will my dream, will I have the capacity, 50% of the capacity to reach that dream, or will I have below 50%? If I already have more than 50%, then I would think, okay, what is remaining 49% to achieve my dream. What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What do I need to acquire? Who I need to talk? Whenever you want to do good, like hack for good, or whenever you want to solve an issue, your own issue, or your career issue, or your entrepreneurship, a lot of people are living by the dreams of creating their companies. Whenever you're creating your company, you have a dream of making sure you have a solution or product or end product. You have a value proposition. So you need to educate yourself, say, what are my challenges? How can I reach? What are the different steps to reach those goals? Do I need 2 years? Do I need 3 years? Do I need this diploma, another diploma, or a third one in order to achieve it? If I'm thinking that there's more than 50% of things that I need to learn to achieve it, then I think maybe it's too risky, because then I will spend more time to try to learn to achieve the goals. However, you need to live your dreams in such a way that it gives you satisfaction. I think at the end of the day, whenever you have your own satisfaction by achieving your goal, whether you reach it or whether you don't reach it, that's okay. If you fail, you have a way to rebound. Once you fail, your failure, that's how you learn. What did I do wrong? What are my mistakes in order to get better the next time? Don't have only one dream, but have a lot of different dreams in order to make sure that whatever factor of the disruption I'll be facing during my past to achieving my goals, I'll still be able to find a resilience way. It won't be straight. It will never be straight. It will always be a winding curve before reaching your goals. Don't be afraid. It's winding curve for everyone. It has been winding curves for your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents during their times with the different version of industry. It will be winding road anyway before you reach the goal, but don't be afraid and just go for it.
Okay, thank you. So living your dream, I think that's a good message, and thank you for also helping making the dream of a whole team for this initiative come true by giving this masterclass. Thank you a lot, Paul.
Thank you, man.